Hi everybody, it's Brett here, and I am so happy to be sharing the basics of sewing with you. My own mother and grandmother introduced me to sewing when I was young, and it gave me the opportunity to be creative in so many new ways. I am honored to be sharing that with you today. I had always thought Skeletor here deserved a cape, so when I was young, I made him one out of felt and Velcro that I sewed to it. I still use sewing in my own art and to make and fix things around my home. Hand skills, like sewing, were often passed down in communities and in families. Young women in the early United States often showcased their needlework in samplers like this one. Here you can see that then 12-year-old Sally Johnson had stitched the letters of the alphabet and depicted scenes from daily life at that time in Massachusetts. A lot has changed since then, but we still sew with the same basic stitches. For my demonstration, I'll be sewing with a large plastic needle and bright red embroidery floss. This thread is thick and bright, so it'll be easy for you to see. I've tied a small knot in the thread through the eye, or the opening, the hole, of the needle. This will help keep my thread from falling out as I sew. It's a helpful trick when you're just starting out. You'll need a sewing needle, thread, fabric, and an embroidery hoop helps. Keeping your stitches straight in sewing is an important skill. I'm going to lay out my lines on my fabric. One I'll lay out with a washable chalk pencil using a ruler, and the other I'll lay out with a straight line of tape right across my fabric. I'll start my stitch from below. So I'll say up, then down. You'll pull the thread through. If you pull too hard, your fabric will bunch. So pull tautly, but not tightly. Up, then down. And that's the running stitch. This next stitch is called a back stitch. It's like a running stitch, but your needle does a back flip on the back side of the fabric to come back up and around. I brought my needle and my thread up and down, and then it's going to do the back flip on the back side and come back up. And then it's going to go down again, all the way through, do the back flip, and then up, down, flip it back, and then up. If you were making a smaller stitch instead of the large stitches like I am, this would look like a single continuous line, unlike the running stitch. That's the back stitch. The last stitch I'll be showing you is called the whip stitch, or an edge stitch. Normally, this is used to hold two pieces of fabric together. You also can use it to hold a folded piece of fabric over, twice as thick. I took my fabric off of the embroidery hoop, and you'll notice it has this frayed edge. If you want to hide that, you can use a whip stitch. I'll fold it over once, so I have one side that shows the fray and one side that doesn't. You can start your stitch on the side that shows the fray, because you'll also see the knot. The whip stitch then goes around and back through. With this stitch, you'll be careful not to bunch up your fabric. If you pull too tightly, it creates a bunch. So keep it taut and loose. Bring it back around. Work the needle through. Pull, 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 and oh, I bunched it up. So I'll simply loosen it, pull it over the top, and there we go. When you keep this pattern going, you'll end up seeing that red thread wrapped around and around, coiled, almost like a spiral notebook, but made of fabric. Now that you know a few stitches, keep on practicing. Work on making those lines nice and straight and those stitches evenly placed. See what sorts of creative things you can draw with thread. Thanks for stitching with me. And if you'd like to see how to make your own embroidery hoop like this, out of an old canister, keep watching. You will need some grown-up help. Keep the lid on your canister and using a jab saw, a serrated knife, a pair of scissors, or a box cutter, cut the canister about 1 inch or 2 below where the lid attaches. Cut a large hole into the lid about 1 inch or so in from the edge. Place a sheet of fabric between the lid and the top of the canister that you just cut. Be sure that the fabric is large enough and thin enough to fit. Pull your fabric taut, almost like a drum. Excess fabric can be folded, wrapped around the edge, and secured with a rubber band. This will keep it out of your way while you're stitching. Now you're ready to sew.